If we look at modern combat footage from around the globe, we can notice one very unusual thing. Despite the billions spent on modern modular weapon systems, elite forces and insurgents alike constantly rely on a battered, 60-year-old Soviet PKM machine gun. What makes the PKM so irreplaceable, and why hasn't the West been able to build a clear superior? On every continent where conflict flares, the PKM remains a fixture. Its silhouette, long, lean, and often fitted with a battered wooden stock, appears alongside the most advanced body armor and night vision gear. This is not a museum piece or a rebel's last resort. The PKM is a standard tool for regular armies, paramilitary groups, and insurgents alike. From the open deserts of the Middle East to the dense jungles of Southeast Asia, and in the frozen forests of Eastern Europe, the same machine gun continues to lay down fire decades after its introduction. By 2018, more than 1 million PK and PKM machine guns had been produced worldwide. The weapon's presence isn't limited to Russian or former Soviet forces. Chinese, Serbian, and Bulgarian factories have all turned out licensed variants, feeding a global demand that shows no sign of slowing. In recent years, footage from Syria, Ukraine, Libya, and Central Africa highlights a striking contradiction. Modern fighters, often equipped with Western optics and digital radios, still choose the PKM for its reliability and firepower. It is just as likely to be seen mounted on a technical in a desert convoy as it is in the hands of a uniformed soldier dug in behind sandbags. This widespread use is not nostalgia or lack of options. The PKM's continued frontline service is a direct result of its mechanical dependability and battlefield performance. It is a weapon trusted by those who cannot afford to gamble on anything less than proven reliability, regardless of how new or expensive the alternatives may be. Every year, defense ministries and arms manufacturers unveil new machine guns, each promising to redefine firepower for the modern battlefield. Yet, when the shooting starts in the world's most unforgiving environments, it's the PKM that keeps showing up. This isn't about Soviet nostalgia or a lack of alternatives. It's about a weapon that, by all logic, should have been outclassed decades ago, yet refuses to be replaced. The PKM fires a cartridge first issued when the Tsar still ruled Russia, and its design predates the moon landing. Western doctrine abandoned rimmed cartridges after World War I, citing endless feed problems and engineering headaches. American and NATO forces field the M240, a heavier, more recent design built around a rimless, round, quick-change barrel and modular mounts. On paper, the PKM's technical choices look like holdovers from another era. In practice, they keep outperforming expectations. Why does a machine gun built around a so-called obsolete cartridge with a stamped steel receiver and a feed system most Western engineers would call a nightmare still dominate battlefields from Ukraine to Africa? There's a mechanical secret inside the receiver, a piece of engineering that quietly solves a problem most designers never dared tackle. But before we go on, I'd like to introduce you something interesting. So, the first 7.6 2x54R cartridge was adopted in 1891. Designed for the Mosin-Nagant rifle of Imperial Russia, this rimmed round was a product of 19th century military thinking, a time when smokeless powder was still a new idea and repeating rifles had only just begun to change the battlefield. The rimmed case, with its distinctive flange at the base, made extraction in bolt-action rifles more reliable, especially in mud and snow. For the Russian army, that reliability was more important than ease of feeding in automatic weapons, which barely existed at the time. Decades passed, and the 7.62x54R outlived the Tsar, the Revolution, and 2 world wars. It powered the DP-28, the SG-43, and the RP-46, each new weapon forced to accommodate the same rim geometry, even as Western militaries abandoned rimmed cartridges in favor of rimless designs. The British moved on from .303, the Americans from .3040 Krag. But in the Soviet Union, Logistical continuity and proven performance meant the rim survived every attempt at replacement. Factories were built around it, stockpiles measured in millions of rounds. By the 1950s, even as Soviet engineers experimented with rimless alternatives, no official replacement was ever adopted. The result was a paradox. When Mikhail Kalashnikov set out to design a new general-purpose machine gun, he faced the challenge of building a modern automatic weapon around a cartridge that predated the first motor car. The rim, once an asset, had become an engineering constraint. Yet instead of switching to a new round, Soviet doctrine demanded that the PKM make the old cartridge work, no matter how complicated the feeding problem became. This inherited legacy sits at the heart of the PKM story, shaping every design decision that followed. A rimmed cartridge, like the 7.62 by 54R, brings a unique set of headaches to anyone designing an automatic weapon. The rim was a blessing for 19th century bolt-action rifles, making extraction more reliable in mud, ice, or snow. But in a belt-fed machine gun, that same rim becomes a mechanical liability. Cartridges must be stacked so that the rim of each round sits in front of the one behind it. If the rims overlap or catch, the result is rim lock, a stoppage that can jam the gun at the worst possible moment. Western armies saw this problem early. The British .303, another rimmed round, plagued the Vickers and Bren guns with feed issues. American designers, facing similar troubles with the .30-40 Krag, moved to rimless cartridges by 1906. The logic was simple. A rimless round slides smoothly from belt or magazine into the chamber, with no flange to snag or misalign. By the end of World War II, nearly every Western general-purpose machine gun, whether the American Browning M1919, the German MG42, or the post-war FN MAG, was built around rimless ammunition. The feed geometry became simpler. The belts could be lighter, links more compact, and the risk of catastrophic jams dropped sharply. Soviet designers, however, never had the luxury of a clean slate. Factories across the USSR were already turning out billions of rounds of 7.62 by 54R. Every rifle, sniper weapon, and heavy machine gun in the Red Army fired the same rimmed cartridge. Replacing it would have meant scrapping decades of production lines and retraining an entire military. Instead, Soviet doctrine demanded a new machine gun that could make the old round work, no matter how much trouble it caused. Engineers like Vladimir Fedorov warned that rimmed cartridges complicate feeding in automatic weapons, and Western analysts such as Gordon Rotman have echoed that assessment in modern commentary. The challenge was not theoretical. Rim lock, misfeeds, and extractor failures were real risks in every design cycle. Each new Soviet machine gun, DP, SG-43, RP-46, had to wrestle with the same inherited cartridge. The engineering pressure mounted with every attempt to build a lighter, more mobile weapon. Where the West had already solved the problem by changing the ammunition, Soviet designers were forced to solve it with mechanical ingenuity alone. The rim, once a symbol of reliability, had become a technical trap, one that would demand a radical new approach if the PKM was to succeed. Inside the PKM's receiver, a sequence unfolds that defies the expectations of most Western engineers. The secret lies in the two-stage feed, a mechanical choreography that turns a notorious liability into a battlefield asset. As the bolt carrier cycles rearward, a pair of extractor claws reach forward and seize the rim of the waiting 7.62 by 54R cartridge. Instead of pushing the round forward from the belt, as in most NATO designs, the PKM pulls the cartridge straight back out of the non-disintegrating metal link. This backward extraction is not just a quirk. It is the key move that separates the rim from the belt and prevents the infamous rim lock that haunted earlier generations of machine guns. Once clear of the belt, the round drops into a shallow feed tray, held in perfect alignment for the next stage. On the forward stroke, the bolt carrier drives the cartridge directly into the chamber, the rim now safely behind the feed path and no longer able to snag or double feed. The rotating bolt locks, and the PKM is ready to fire again. This pullback then push-forward process, executed in a fraction of a second, ensures that the rimmed cartridge never binds in the belt or jams the action, a problem that crippled many Western attempts to use similar ammunition. Mikhail Kalashnikov's design writings describe the frustration of early prototypes, plagued by jams and misfeeds, until this two-stage solution was perfected. While the West moved to rimless rounds to avoid the problem entirely, Kalashnikov's mechanism solves it at the source. The result is a feed system that is both rugged and forgiving, capable of running reliably in mud, sand, and snow. Here, hidden beneath stamped steel, is the mechanical genius that lets the PKM do what others could not: feed an ancient rimmed cartridge at modern rates of fire, under real combat conditions. The PKM's feed system is often mistaken for a patchwork solution, but every detail is an intentional answer to the rimmed cartridge dilemma. Analysts like Ian Skennerton and Martin K. A. Morgan have broken down this mechanism, pointing out that what looks convoluted is, in fact, the machine gun's core strength. The two-stage feed isn't a leftover from earlier designs or a stopgap. It's a calculated response to the unique challenges of the 7.6 2x54R. Western engineers, facing similar headaches with rimmed rounds, abandoned them. The Soviets, locked into their ammunition legacy, had to engineer around the problem. The PKM's extractor claws and feed path are designed to pull each cartridge backward out of the belt before chambering. This sequence, counterintuitive to most Western doctrine, ensures that the rim of one round never collides with the rim of the next. It's a mechanical choreography that prevents rim lock, one of the most feared stoppages in any automatic weapon. Where other guns might jam, the PKM keeps running, even under mud, sand, or ice. This is the documentary's first major reveal. What many see as the PKM's oddity is the very reason it's so dependable. The so-called weirdness is not a flaw but a feature, a deliberate act of engineering that lets the PKM fire an ancient cartridge with the reliability modern armies demand. In the world of automatic weapons, this kind of problem-solving is rare, and it's the heart of why the PKM still dominates the battlefield. Many people think the PKM is just an upside-down AK-47, but this is just a myth that has nothing to do with reality. The resemblance is only skin-deep. While both weapons share Kalashnikov's long-stroke gas piston and rotating bolt, the PKM is not built on the same architecture as the AK. The differences start with the receiver. Instead of the AK's heavier, milled, or stamped shell, the PKM uses a U-shaped receiver stamped from 1.5mm steel sheet, thinner, lighter, and reinforced with rivets and cross pins. This stamped steel construction is no accident. It's a deliberate strategy to reduce weight and speed up production. At just 7.5 kilograms unloaded, the PKM is a full third lighter than many Western general-purpose machine guns, and this weight advantage comes directly from its skeletal frame. The PKM's internal layout is another departure from the AK. The gas piston rides below the barrel, not above, and the feed system is designed for belt operation, not box magazines. The feed tray, extractor claws, and bolt carrier are all engineered to handle the unique demands of a rimmed cartridge, something the AK never faced. The result is a weapon that looks familiar at a glance but is fundamentally different in its mechanical priorities. Kalashnikov's design philosophy for the PKM was not to simply scale up or invert the AK, but to create a machine gun where every gram and every part serves a purpose. The skeletal receiver, open spaces, and minimal use of solid steel reflect a ruthless focus on saving mass and complexity without sacrificing reliability. This approach turns the PKM into a coherent engineering system, a purpose-built machine gun, not a rifle in disguise. The myth of the upside-down AK ignores the real achievement: a lightweight, reliable, and efficient weapon tailored to the harsh realities of Soviet doctrine and the logistical demands of mass production. Side by side on the scale, the PKM and the M240, or FNMAG, represent two philosophies aimed at the same battlefield need. The PKM, at just 7.5 kilograms unloaded, stands in sharp contrast to the M240, which tips the scales between 11.8 and 12.5 kilograms depending on the model. That is a difference of nearly 5 kilograms, more than 10 pounds, before a single round is loaded. For a gunner on foot, every kilogram matters. The PKM's stamped steel receiver, pared down to the essentials, allows it to be carried and fired by a single operator, even over rough ground or during rapid assaults. The M240, by comparison, was designed with a heavier machined receiver and robust barrel assembly, built for sustained fire from a tripod or vehicle mount. Ballistically, both the PKM's 7.62 by 54R and the M240's 7.62 by 51 NATO deliver similar muzzle energy and effective range. Muzzle velocities hover around 825 to 840 meters per second, and at 500 meters, both rounds retain enough power to defeat cover and body armor. The difference in trajectory is minor, slightly more drop for the PKM's older cartridge, but not enough to decide a firefight. What does matter is how quickly the gun can move with the squad, how long a team can carry it, and how fast it can be brought into action. Soviet doctrine demanded that the general-purpose machine gun travel with the infantry, ready to lay down fire from a bipod at a moment's notice. The PKM's weight advantage makes this possible. NATO doctrine, on the other hand, often places the M240 on a tripod or vehicle, prioritizing sustained fire over mobility. In practical terms, the PKM can be carried, deployed, and repositioned by a single gunner, while the M240 usually requires a crew and is slower to move. For foot mobile units, that weight gap is decisive. It is not just lighter on paper, it is lighter in the mud, in the snow, and under fire. When the gun has to move, the PKM's design delivers a real, measurable edge. Doctrine shapes not only the design of a weapon, but its entire role on the battlefield. Soviet tactical manuals from the late Cold War era set a clear expectation. The general-purpose machine gun must move with the infantry. The PKM, weighing just 7.5 kilograms with its stamped steel receiver, was built for a gunner who might need to sprint, crawl, or climb with the weapon slung across his shoulders. Soviet doctrine demanded fire on the move, rapid redeployment, and burst from a bipod as squads advanced. The PKM was never just a support weapon, it was a tool for maneuver warfare, expected to keep pace with assault troops in forests, mountains, and cities. Western doctrine took a different path. Here, the machine gun became a base of fire. The American M240 and its FN MAG predecessor are heavier, often over 12 kilograms unloaded. NATO field manuals assign these guns to crew-served roles, mounted on tripods or vehicles, delivering sustained fire from fixed positions. Heavier barrels and reinforced receivers allow for longer bursts, but at the cost of mobility. In static defense or fortified outposts, this approach works. But for dismounted teams crossing rough ground, every extra kilogram slows the advance and drains energy. This difference in philosophy appears in operator preference. U.S. Army field manuals and after-action reports from Afghanistan and Iraq show that special operations teams, when given the choice, often select the PKM in austere environments. The reasons are practical: lighter weight, simpler mechanism, and easier field maintenance. The PKM's two-stage feed and rugged construction mean fewer stoppages in dust, mud, or snow, conditions that challenge Western guns without intensive upkeep. Declassified Soviet pamphlets echo the same priorities: a gun that one man can carry, fire from the shoulder or hip, and keep running with minimal tools or spare parts. Western Special Forces have praised the PKM's reliability and portability, sometimes preferring it over their own standard-issue weapons, far from supply lines. When movement, endurance, and simplicity matter, the PKM's design remains an advantage. In an era obsessed with digital upgrades, Western arsenals still struggle to match the PKM's ratio of firepower, reliability, and weight. Extractor claws, two-stage feed, and rimmed cartridges, each element defies conventional logic, yet delivers battlefield results. As conflicts evolve, the PKM's paradoxical dominance reminds us that raw engineering mastery can outlast fashion and doctrine. Sometimes, the most modern answer is hidden inside a stamped steel receiver. Share your perspective in the comments.